So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted that we have with us Chris Rose, who's co-owner and MD at 2020 Creative. So firstly, Chris, thanks for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and 2020 Creative to the audience, what you do and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Hi, I'm Chris Rose. I'm the MD and co-owner and shareholder of 2020 Creative, and we're a 4,000 square foot content production studio just down at the edge of Leeds. So we're probably the best thing you've never heard of.
Great.
Because we're relatively good value, amazing product, and nobody's heard of us. So we're like a shop in a desert, really. So I'm not here to spout too much about the business. I will tell you about the business, but it's about a journey as well, the journey of the business as well as the journey of me and my co-workers, how people were made redundant. We made something positive out of that. And my mantra really is, wherever there's something bad going on, find the good and concentrate on the good.
Great.
That's how this business started.
Brilliant. A wonderful way to approach anything, I think, because it is a positive. It reminds me, we'll probably talk about quotes later on, but one of my favourite quotes is Henry Ford's, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." And
yeah, I'm not sure about that, but
well, I think it's the best way to approach anything is, I believe I can. But yeah. So I mean, just to help anyone that's interested in what you're doing, what sort of problems do you solve? So imagine I'm somebody that might be someone that would want to work with you. Who might I be?
Yeah, primarily we photograph, video, and stop motion products to sell online. That's mainly what we do. Yeah.
Great.
So, of course, just one reference to that, when the ship blocked the Suez Canal,
yes,
a lot of our work was on that ship. So that caused an impact in our studio because we were waiting for things to come off that ship to photograph to go on somebody's website.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Unbelievable, isn't it?
So people, so I'm just trying to get this. So the size of the studio is about people send you things to photograph so that then they can put it on their website.
Yeah. And what's slightly disappointing from my 40 years in the business is the amount of product we buy from abroad. Probably 5% of everything we photograph or video or create stop motion or create any content comes from the UK. 95% comes from the rest of the world. And that's something I think we all have to think about. Goodness,
absolutely, 100%. And what's great about doing these interviews is how many brilliant businesses there are on a doorstep producing. There's a lot, manufacturing itself is increasing in the UK over time, and it'd be great to connect those guys with you.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful. So maybe, Chris, if we start sort of at the beginning, if you could tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Yeah, I think it all started off when I wanted to be a deep sea diver, actually. So if we jump right back, I'll fast track because it's a long history. There's 40-some years doing it. I wanted to be a deep sea diver. And the reason I wanted to be a deep sea diver, looking back now, it's a ridiculous reason. I thought the death rate at that point in the 70s was quite high. And I thought, well, if I can do it and stay alive, I must be good at my job. It's absolute proof of your job. I failed the medical. I've got asthma. Absolutely no chance. So I thought, right, what can I do? So that went out of my head fairly quickly. So then I thought, right, I'd like to work for Yorkshire Television. So I went to art college, Batley Art College as it was then, which was one of the leading photography colleges in the UK at the time. I spent 2 or 3 years there, couldn't get into ITV because in those days it was heavily unionised, and the basic rule was if you don't know someone, you probably won't get in. And I didn't. So I was told clearly that wouldn't happen. So I thought, right, I'll work as a photographer, work in a few studios, learn the ropes. I'd already been to college. And within a year or so, arrogant 19-year-old, 20-year-old me thought, I can do it better than all these people. They all seem to follow a set of rules and processes, and I hadn't learned those rules and processes. And I decided I want my rules and my processes to be different to theirs. And although much of the work was focused on doing the job, it was also focused on getting the money, as much money as you could, out of the client. And I don't believe in that. I think you should do the best job you can for the best value, because then you'll get a business, in my experience, that just grows organically.
Yeah.
So I moved on from there. So at 21, I was working for myself, never worked for anybody since.
Right.
Built up companies, sold them, built up companies, sold them. What number is this now? 4 or 5. This is number 4 or 5, this one.
Brilliant.
They're all micro companies though. So I never hit 1 million turnover.
Right.
It's about profit, not turnover. Yep. Once I hit a certain level of profit, then I usually get bored, decide to sell. And usually my first option is to the staff. If the staff want to do a buyout, there's a business there, they've got a job for life if they can run that business. I've even offered one of the businesses to a member of staff for £1, and it was turned down. So none of the staff have ever bought the businesses, which I find fascinating. And I think that doesn't reflect very well on me, because obviously I'm not doing something right. Because if you can't sell it for £1, you know, what's going wrong?
That's interesting. I mean, I'd suggest there is another reason, another very important reason, is that it is a mindset issue. Owning a business is a mindset issue. And most people in their minds prefer to work for somebody else, irrespective of the size and scale of the work. So right. And I've seen this in coaching, where I've coached 2 or 3 CEOs of companies, of massive, 100 million, hundreds of millions, billion type companies. But they always had someone holding them accountable. They always had the chairman and the shareholders that held them accountable. And being on your own and it being just down to us is something that only a few people are comfortable with. And that's why only 6% of the population are entrepreneurs. So
right.
I honestly wouldn't worry too much. Most people just have a comfort feeling of working for somebody else. It doesn't mean they are high performers. It doesn't mean they aren't worth incredible salaries and remuneration, but there is a comfort in working for somebody else as opposed to working for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So
it doesn't compute in my head, unfortunately, but
no, it won't. But the point is, it won't, and that's the key thing. And one of the key things of being a business owner is to think about how our employees think, not just about how we think. Because we do think differently, and often for in better ways and things that are really valuable for the company. But it is a different thing. So no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put that down to yourself particularly, but you could choose to if you want to.
Yeah. Looking back, I think maybe in my 20s, when I thought I was indestructible, maybe if I'd got some coaching, business coaching, because I'm completely self-taught, maybe things would have been different moving forwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other interesting thing is, business education up until sort of the last few years has been a very rare thing in many ways. That most we always used to joke that people often spend more time working out how to grow their garden than grow their business.
Yes,
but that's okay. It's not been. That's why we do what we do. So looking back, I mean, including not just this business but other businesses you had, what would you say are some of the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome?
Probably not enough coaching, not enough training, and not enough self-awareness of what I couldn't do, because I've always believed I can do whatever I want to do. I mean, literally, you're right. That is a mindset, and I wouldn't say that's foolish. I think that's an interesting concept, because I think a lot of things in life are quite conceptual. What we think, what is real, and not actually the same. So the mindset comes in, and I believe whatever I want to do, I can do. So somebody said to me 15 years ago, why, at that point, now I'm classed as a managing director, but I trained as a photographer. And they said, why are you a photographer? And I said, because I decided I didn't want to be a brain surgeon. It was my choice. It doesn't mean I ever could be a brain surgeon. But my mindset is, if I want to be, I'll try my hardest. And if I can, I will. And if I can't, well, I can't. I'll do something else. I think failing is a good thing to experience.
Yes.
And I think far too many people get disappointed when they fail at things, and I failed at more than I've failed at so much, it's unbelievable, but I just move on. It's about resilience, because if you don't fail, you don't necessarily build up resilience. So I think that's quite important as well. So
it reminds me of our founder, Brad Sugars, who's a very, very successful man, and he told me many years ago, it's always stuck with me again, which was he believes he's as successful as he is because he's made more mistakes than anybody else he knows.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than despite. It was because it's the willingness to accept mistakes and failures that allows us to stretch ourselves further than many others would, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And failures are okay. I've had so many. And you just get used to them and think, okay, maybe that's not for me. Maybe I need more training. Maybe I should move on. You just make of it what you want, but then find that positive thing and focus on that positive thing.
Absolutely.
So that, again, yeah.
And, I think the other sort of concept is that, failure is only failure if we don't learn from it. If we learn from it, then it's actually just an educational process.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
There's a great phrase. I don't know who it comes down to, but the photo I've got with it, which I love, is Dean Martin, because it just sort of. But it says good. Let's go. Good judgment comes from. Let's get it right. Experience comes from. Good judgment comes from experience, which comes from bad judgment.
Right.
So we can't. I mean, the real truth is, if you show me somebody that's never made a mistake, I'll show you somebody that knows nowhere near as much as somebody that's made loads of mistakes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, we do a lot within Action Coach. We do a lot of work within the sort of sport. We embrace a lot of sports coaching techniques because coaching, that's where it's come from. And we work with a guy called Frank Dick a lot, who's MBE, he's he's been British Olympics, athletics, cycling, very, very amazing coach. And one thing he said again, sorry, that I recall was most people review why something went wrong. The idea of black box thinking, it failed, what went wrong, let's fix it. Very sensible. But he said if you don't analyze why you won, then it's luck.
Yes.
And so, we typically learn from mistakes, but we should learn from successes as well in terms of what went right. Because if we don't consciously do it, we may just be being very, very lucky.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So obviously, we've had lots of challenges, and most of the most successful people I know have. But what have you drawn out as some of the biggest learnings about business from whether those challenges or those successes?
What I learned a long time ago was the best time to expand your business, for me, I'm not saying this is for everyone, is when times are tough in the economy. So I'm at the age when we've gone through several recessions, when interest rates are at 15%.
Yep.
I'm quite lucky now. I've got to an age in life where I don't have a mortgage, but when I got divorced, I became a single parent. Interest rates were at 8%. I had to buy my partner out. I was paying an absolute fortune for my mortgage, and it's still half of what I was paying in 2008 when things peaked. I've learned to try a little bit. Fairly easy if you've got a reasonably resilient business. And if you don't, then push harder when times are tough. And I think the economy is going into leaner times. I've got that feeling that we're going into leaner times. We as a business haven't particularly experienced it. We're not growing as quickly as we used to. For the first 3 years, we grew through COVID, we grew through the Suez Canal issue, we grew through the second lockdown, and we had a few staffing problems that we had to resolve, which were challenging. People struggling with mental health through lockdown, things like that. We had to support some of the staff and things like that, who eventually moved on. Unfortunately, that was a bit of a shame, but they felt that they had other paths to follow. And then, of course, we are coming to a time now where the media are constantly saying things are getting really tough. Yet I still can't book into a restaurant because they're always full on a Friday night. So I'm a bit confused about that. So there seems to be a bigger divide, doesn't there, between the people who have less and the people who have more. That's growing more than I've ever seen before. With our clients, we look at all our clients, we see the ones that are finding it tougher, and they're the people that sell low price products. Wilco's is a good example. We don't work for Wilco's, but we have contacts in Wilco's, and it's a shame what's happening there. And yet we have other clients who are in the higher end of the market, and they're just storming. I mean, A client that set up of ours, I can't mention the name at the moment, but 2.5 years ago are now turning over £3 million, and they're selling high-end luxury goods. They're not having, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy for them, but they're having less problems than Fred, who sells lampshades down the market. He seems to be struggling more than. So, yeah, we're trying to push in different avenues, and that. But what's also encouraged us to do as a business is create a multi-tiered offering.
Yep.
Because it used to be that we were a price and that was the price. And what we found are, we've had, for example, 3 startups approach us this week and said, we want to sell on Amazon, we want to do this, we want to do that, we need photos, we need video, we need all the things that we need. And our previous rates working for high-end companies were too high. And these are local companies and we want to support local companies.
Right.
We've created a tiered pricing scale to give them an entry level. And that doesn't mean we're cheap. I think cheap is a bad thing. It puts you out of business. It doesn't give good results. You've got to be really careful. So we go back to that value-added product. How can we add value to someone's business if they don't have much money? We ask them to talk to us. We ask them to be honest with us. We ask them to tell us their budgets. And nobody seems to want to tell you their budget because they think you might quote cheaper, which is always an odd thing in this business. And if we can't do a job because it's too cheap, we won't. And if we can do it for better value in a different way. So we look at a client's problem of how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve. And we'll come up with the best, most financially viable solution for that particular client. And
brilliant.
That's served us quite well. And I think that will help us with our growth plan. We've got a growth strategy in September. We've got a market. All those kind of things. And I think that will drive our business forwards. I'm very confident that we're going to grow in the next 12, 18 months and then continue growing to a point where we want to stop growing because we don't want to grow exponentially. There'll be a point where we go into work and we enjoy ourselves. And when you go into work and it's hard work and you don't enjoy it, then it's time to maybe think about why you've done it. So there's so many different facets to business, aren't there?
There really are. There really are. And you know, the thing I always say to business owners is the challenge with being a business owner ultimately is the buck stops with us. You know, there isn't anyone else. As you said earlier, that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't want to be business owners. But the great thing about owning a business is we get to choose how it is. So it doesn't matter how other people run and grow the businesses, we can grow ours the way we choose. And if that's and that's what's great about it is that flexibility and that choice. But yeah, I think it might be worth talking afterwards about. See, my proposition is growth and growing fast, or whether it's growing fast or slow, doesn't have to mean that it becomes unpleasant or hard or anything else if you maintain the core principles of the business. In fact,
yes,
if you maintain the core principles of the business, you could probably grow really, really successfully because of that. And if that makes sense, I totally get what you're saying. I think we hear a lot of people saying, I don't want to grow too big because then, and they'll say, I saw this business did this and they lost their culture and all those sorts of things. But there's plenty of examples where that doesn't happen. Successful businesses have grown. I mean, I think there's the story of, which is semi-relevant to what we're talking about, is the Zappos shoe company over in Las Vegas. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they were an online shoe. They are an online shoe supplier, and that's all they ever were. And I mean, I think they grew. It was something amazing, like they got to 0 to 3 billion in 4 years, or something nuts. But their culture is so strong that it supported that. It didn't, and it enabled them to do that. And it's a really interesting story how growth doesn't have to be to the detriment of the culture, to the people, to anybody else. But heck, as I say, we can grow it however we want. So that's the most important thing.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you think some of the big high street names are now failing then, like Wilko's, for example? What's going wrong there? Because they've had a fantastic opportunity to look at the economy. They've had in the past resources to place themselves where they need to be. What's going wrong there? I don't understand.
I wouldn't want to comment on any particular issue. I do think, and lockdown has exacerbated the idea that the high street, that sort of physical retailing is maybe, you know, is not the way forward for many businesses. Because we can buy online, I don't really need to go to a store to buy most things. The only things I really would like to go to a store for is things that I'd like to experience before I buy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. That actually reminds me, we've I've completely forgotten. We have a client in Canada and a client in Spain.
Right.
And before lockdown, that wasn't something we even considered. Now we consider we can work with anybody anywhere around the world because we're creating digital files. Digital files can be sent via the world network. And it's not a problem. Even the time differences, we haven't anymore. We had suppliers in America.
Yep.
The problem there was the time difference was about 6 to 8 hours.
Yes.
But we still made it work, and it's just about making it work, isn't it? And if you've got the right clients, you just make it work. And I think that's where Great Britain as a nation are very resilient and very creative. I think we're a very creative country, a very creative nation.
Very much so. Yeah. I interviewed the lady. It's the who's supporting film and television in the north of England, and amazing work they're doing about bringing funding in and supporting that. And because we're very creative people, I think I completely agree.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the one thing it's just highlighted is well, there's a great book from a guy called Marshall Goldsmith that sort of sums it up. What got us here won't get us there. And I mean,
I have a saying I used to say to all the people that I work with. And I used to say, just because we did it that way yesterday, we don't necessarily do it that way tomorrow. I'll start again. Just because we did it that way yesterday, we don't necessarily do it that way tomorrow, because things move on, things change, and
100%.
People get set in their ways of doing things. And I have worked with people who have been really set in the ways of doing, and said, well, we always do it like this. For 20 years, we've done it like this. And I've tried to give people the opportunity to step out of that and just think a little bit differently. But sometimes people need a bit of encouragement, a bit of training, a bit of additional support. And even with all that, some people can do it, some people can't do it.
Yeah. I think it's a very, very sound statement, because I think we just accept it's not all, it's if we just do the same thing all the time, it's not necessarily going to be successful. And
there's results then, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not suggesting that's the reason we got any particular case like Wilco, but I think traditional retailing really does need to look hard about how you compete with online, with online selling. There are only some, personally, and I think there's only some certain things that I want to go and experience physically before I buy. So that might be clothes, that might be cars, that might be. But the basics, the stuff that doesn't really matter if it's a little bit bigger or smaller than I think, or why wouldn't you just buy them online? And it's understanding that if we're going to attract people, I think we've got to make selling more experiential. So in terms of what I'm buying, but I think high streets will end up being, full of coffee, cafes, restaurants, coffee bars, places to go and socialize, and the sensible retailers that then want to attract those people will still be there. But if you just want to buy some buckets and a paintbrush, I'm thinking online is probably sensible.
And you've just reminded me as well. There's a lot of things you're saying that are reminding me of things. And during lockdown, we were buying our company delivery vans online, and they were delivered on a transporter. And these are hugely expensive purchases. And we just bought them online in good faith, did a bit of research.
Absolutely.
Used a bit of Trustpilot. 2 or 3 days later, there's a £20,000 van sat outside the work on trust.
It is. I mean, it is on trust. I mean, you've got things like return, very good return policies, all those sorts of things give us the confidence. So there is that question: why do we need to have a physical presence that people have come to us for? Now, some businesses sensibly do, and some niche businesses in every sector will benefit from doing so, if that makes sense. It doesn't have to be a sector by sector. If you provide a really strong experience, and people go, well, I don't just go there for the product, I go there for the way they sell to me. The great example would be the Seattle Fish Market. I don't know if you've ever seen the films of the. So I mean, it's quite a well-known thing. But if you go to, and if you ever go to Seattle, please make sure you go to the market. It's a show. They're throwing fish around. They'll throw fish around. Someone, I want a salmon. Yeah, he goes a salmon goes flying across, and people go just to watch. And but guess what? Quite a few of those people will go, yeah, I'll buy something, whether it's fish or a souvenir of going there. But so no, you couldn't do that online. That isn't an experience that works. So you have to experience it. So I think, and that's been going for many, many years, but highlighting that, I think some businesses will flourish in that respect, and others will need to change. If not, they'll fail. But we've seen this historically, Chris. That's why the examples going back a long time. You remember Woolworths?
Yes.
It got to a point for me. I don't know about you. It was either a card or some pick and mix was the only thing I ever went to Woolworths for.
That's right.
And everything else I go somewhere else. So it's like, MFI, a very successful furniture brand, didn't really change with the times. IKEA just took over that space. And we've got to be reactive and flexible. And as you said before, just because we did it yesterday doesn't mean we need to do it that way tomorrow.
I think one guy that's we've come across, and we work for some of his businesses, Mike Ashley, has really, he can see where something's going wrong.
Yep.
And sometimes it's a culture, not just a process, or it might be a random process. And he's very good at moving into these areas. And we work for quite a few businesses that are part of his group now, and he's just changed them. He's just absolutely revolutionized them. And I think there's a bit of vision in that. He can see where he's going, and he can see why, and he understands the numbers, but also he understands what the customer wants. Because I think through my 40 years in business, I've seen a lot of companies trying to, in fact, I was trying to buy some new equipment yesterday, and I stopped the conversation to the salesman and said, can we just stop the conversation? Listen to what I want to buy, and then we can talk about that product. But he was trying to sell me something completely different. So I think that's one thing that Mike Ashley is quite good at. We've seen some significantly large businesses who have teetered on the edge because they're trying to sell people what they want to sell them, and they don't really understand what their customers want to buy. So, and I think that's helped us as a business, as 2020 Creative. We were actually a photographic studio. If I can just tell you a little bit more of the history.
Please.
Cut a long story short, 'cause it's a very long story. I became a single parent, 3 children. What can I do? Set up a school photography business. 3 years later, it's the 23rd biggest school photography business in the UK, because I listened to what people want, and I just sold people what they asked for and gave amazing customer service, and I had an amazing team, which was almost headed up by my now wife. She was our finance director, and we're now married. And she's been a fantastic support to me along the journey. And so I sold the school photography business because it isn't really what I wanted to do. Once the children grew up, I didn't need to do that. I had to do that because I had to take the children to school. So I thought, well, I might as well take the children to school and take pictures and then pick the kids up and go home, and I've earned some money.
Brilliant.
So then I thought, right, I want to go back back to my roots, which is commercial advertising photography. That's where I've always been quite successful. And so I was looking around, and I met a guy who was working in a studio, and I said, why don't you come and work with me, and we'll set up a new studio. 2 weeks later, his company went into administration. So I went in to buy this business, and it was in a poor state, unfortunately. And so what I said to all the staff I think there were about 9 or 10 staff there, I said, right, let's set up another business. I'll fund it. Let's get going again. Let's move out of this place into a new place. 3 staff decided to come. 7 decided to move on and do other things. The 3 that came were integrated into some of my other businesses, and then we looked for new premises, set up a studio, and set up a photographic studio. Out of those 3, 2 have subsequently left, and one guy is still there, committed to it, and very committed to it. And he's now a major shareholder. We gifted him shares, significant amount of shares, because he's helped build it. And I think it's important to I'm not saying give all your staff shares, but it's important to remunerate people and make them feel valued. And I'm not saying I do that all the time. Sometimes I make mistakes like everybody else, but I always try and tell the staff or tell my work colleagues or my business colleagues how much I value their input and what
Absolutely.
they do. Because without them, I'm not a one-man band. I've always been in the businesses where there's several people working there. Yep. So we set up a photographic studio just about as lockdown came in. We actually incorporated 5 months before lockdown, but then it took us a few months to find a studio. So in end of January, we started trading from premises, and in March, changing very quickly. So people will have to buy online because they can't go out to the shop.
Yeah.
So we took that opportunity to build our turnover, and within the first year, we were doing well over 6 figures. We're not a massive company; we're a micro company, but things were going well. Then the Suez Canal issue happened, and we learned that actually most of our products come from abroad. So we started to remodel the business, and we continued to grow. We hit year 3, and things started to slow down a little bit, and that's because we'd taken our eye off the market. We weren't watching the market close enough because we were reveling in our own success. And which was, you know what? I think you should pat yourself on the back. You know, you set a business up in COVID and the Suez Canal issue and all these things that happened, and we're still in business and we're still making money. So we thought, right, let's just carry on doing this. And that's where the saying, we don't always do what we did, came in, because we just keep doing the same thing, and we've got to stop because the world is now changing. And people were saying, we want videos, we want this, we want that, we want stop motions. And we thought, right, okay, then. So we reinvested in the business. And then we realized we were a shop in a desert. Nobody'd heard of us. Best thing out there, nobody's heard of us. But then we thought, well, although we can create content, we're not actual marketeers. We don't understand pay-per-click and Google SEO and things like that. So then we appointed a marketing agency. And here we are now, about to relaunch under a new name, which I can't disclose yet. 15th of September, I think the launch date is. And we've now become a content agency. So now we're a creative content agency. We make content, visual content, for anybody that wants it, basically.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's, great.
So that's taken about 8 or 9 months to transition.
Yeah.
A not insignificant amount of money to do it. Yep. But we have been, I must say, we have been helped by Leeds Enterprise Partnership.
Great.
Leeds City Council being very supportive, just in giving training, things like that. Digital Enterprise. We were in a building with no internet. We had 3 megs internet. Digital Enterprise partly funded a system where we get 5G. So
brilliant.
So it's about stretching out and understanding what you don't know as well as what you know, and reaching out to people who can help you with the things you don't know, and just suck it up and get on with it, basically. Don't be too proud to take that advice. So
that makes absolute perfect sense. And you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've ever worked with, whether that's business, sport, or life in general.
I've only ever worked with 2 because I thought I knew it all. And it's taken me a long time to realize I know nothing. But I've only worked with 2, and Bipin, Bipin, he's excelled, really. He's incredibly enthusiastic. But yes, that's just how it works, really.
Wonderful.
Probably haven't had enough coaching.
No, I do believe it's. I know from the work we've done, we've had great results with so many different businesses. So I'm obviously an advocate of what we do. But thank you. And we've talked about a few quotes and sayings. Are there any other favourite quotes or sayings that you find yourself using a lot?
Yes, to my children. I was a single parent for quite a while, 3 children, trying to run a business, trying to run a household, trying to pay my mortgage at 9%, I think it was, or something.
Yeah.
All the pressures of life that everybody gets. And I used to say to my children, some pretty horrible things in the world. So if everybody in the world did one good thing every day for someone else, that'd be 7 billion good things every day.
Brilliant.
That could change the world.
Love it.
My kids try and do that. Obviously, I can only preach to my own kids. I can't preach to others, but I think that's something we should all think about. And I'm seeing more and more people now, more and more business owners becoming socially responsible.
Yes.
Trying to help other people. It's not just about us, it's about helping other people. So, yeah.
Completely agree. And I think it's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, the idea of sort of paying it forward, just do a nice thing, because the world would be a better place.
Yes.
I think one of my heroes is Kevin Sinfield, the rugby league player, who's obviously and he talks about just being a friend. If everyone could be a better friend to somebody else, the world would be a better place. And I think it's absolutely bang on. And Chris, what would you say you learned about yourself along this journey?
Wow, that's a big one, isn't it? Is this from when I started in business 40 years ago?
Just anything that comes to mind about what you've learned. Yeah, it's just interesting.
I think I come from an era where, my working career was in the 80s, the Thatcherite years, where capitalism was rife and you work hard and you do what you have to do and you make loads of cash and I didn't think it was that difficult to do. I was very fortunate, really. I try and be a little bit more humble now. Yes, I was probably too cocky, too confident. In fact, I put something on my LinkedIn the other day. I decided, or my wife decided, we're going to learn paddleboarding. Wow, I thought, fantastic. So we decided we'd have a lesson. We need a lesson. We can't just buy one. So we went to Coniston Water and had a lesson from a great bloke up there. And he did a headstand on the paddleboard in the middle of Lake Coniston.
Wow.
I'm 2 hours into this lesson. I genuinely thought I could do a headstand. In my head, I genuinely thought I could do this.
Brilliant.
Oh, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this at all. But anyway, three sessions later, so I'm into my third session, headstand in the middle of a lake on my paddleboard. So what I've learned about myself is I'm not indestructible. I can't do everything I think I can do, but do you know what? I still know if I try, I will probably succeed. Even if it's just a headstand on a paddleboard in the middle of a lake. That to me was my biggest achievement.
It's brilliant. It feels like, talking to you, that the sort of excellence is the common theme through this. I mean, you mentioned at the start of your career, wanting to be a deep sea diver because you want, to survive, you have to be the best, and all the way through. It's really fascinating. It reminds me. I'm a very strong Welsh rugby fan, and there was a documentary about a guy called Sam Warburton, who was the Welsh captain, but also captain the British Lions, and he said even from the age of sort of 5, he would be playing a game and he'd look at his opposite number at the scrum, the other number 7, and he basically said in his mind, I will be a British Lion, therefore I must be better than you. So it wasn't an arrogant thing. It's just, I have to be better than you because I'm going to be playing for the British and Irish Lions. And it's just that feels a similar thing. I've just got to be the best, which is wonderful.
Sometimes it's you have to be a bit careful, because I've recently had a family member pass away from cancer, and I've been supporting a few cancer charities, and one of them was Omaze, the £1 Million House Draw, whatever it's called. Yes. I generally don't buy tickets, things like that. I do charitable work, but I generally don't buy tickets and things. I don't buy the lottery tickets, things like that. But it was for cancer research, and I thought, you know what, I'll buy a ticket. And I, because I don't buy many tickets, I decided, what's the most tickets I can buy in one hit? And it's £160 or something. And of course, then my Yorkshireman kicked in and thought, well, can I get a discount? I think the phones listen to us, don't they? And a discount popped up, and I got a discount, and I spent just over £100 on tickets. And I thought, well, a lot of it's to a good cause.
Yes.
Problem was, I bought these tickets. I genuinely believed I was going to win that house. I mean, that's just delusional, isn't it? I mean,
Was this the one in Yorkshire? I think this is.
Yes, yeah,
No. It's funny. So my daughter and I both said that because she bought the
yeah,
ticket. She saw it,
yeah.
and she lives over in Liverpool now. She said, "Yeah, well, you can't be winning it because I'm winning it."
Yeah, I genuinely believed
Sorry,
it.
and it wasn't any of us in the end.
But it's that mindset, isn't it? I
Absolutely, yeah,
genuinely believe. If I do something, I genuinely believe it's going to work. And if it
brilliant.
doesn't, I get disappointed for a few seconds, but then I move on. As simple as that. So.
Well, as I say, going back to Henry Ford, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It's like
Yeah,
the point of it is more likely to be right if you think you can. It's definitely not going to work if you think you can't. That's
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
that's the reality. So
Yeah.
looking forward, Chris, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you face, if any?
Oh, super exciting. The biggest challenge we face at the moment is we're a shop in the desert. Nobody's heard of us.
Yes.
That isn't why I came on this podcast. I came on this podcast because I was really interested to speak to you, because I've heard about you and you sound really interesting, very knowledgeable. And
Sorry to have let you down.
no, you haven't let me down now. And I just love talking to people. I connected on, and I digress a lot, and I'm going to do it now. I connected to a guy on LinkedIn. I love connecting to people on LinkedIn. But what I'm also trying to do is meet the people. Well, I've got about 900 connections. There's no way I'm going to meet them, but I try. Baller. I didn't know this. And I connected to him and he connected to me. And I just said to him, "Hi, Aaron. Thanks for connecting. I'm really pleased that you're part of my network now. Have we to go out for a pint sometimes?" And he connected back to me and said, "Yes, next time you're in London, call me up. And if I'm around, we'll go out for a pint." Now, I don't know whether he will or he won't. But then I told somebody at the office and they went, he played for a Premiership football team as a pundit on telly. There's no way he'll go out for a pint with you, so I'll give it a go.
But you don't know. That's we missed it. I don't know if you gave the name. I might have missed it. We froze for a second. Did you say who that was, or perhaps you didn't? Did you say the name of the person or not? You don't have to, by the way.
Aaron something, but I don't follow football at all. I'm probably
right. It doesn't ring
I
bells.
don't follow football.
It's all cool, but it's really one of the things really interesting. I think is and again, Brad Sugars, our founder, taught me this, was that everyone are just most people, everyone is just a person, and one of the challenges celebrities have people is that because people see them as some other higher being, they don't get approached. And actually, people that approach them, they're often, "Oh yeah, that'd be great," because no one else wants to talk to me because they think I wouldn't.
Yeah, what's really good is if you don't know that they're famous. So yes. I've got a couple. Can I tell you a couple of stories? Please stop me if I'm getting too boring now. It makes me laugh. So when I was in my younger days, I was a PR photographer part-time because I had a studio, but I did a bit of PR photography. And Green Flag, it's called Green Flag Breakdown said, "Can you come up to our offices near Bradford and photograph? We've got somebody coming and do a presentation." So I went up there and I went into this room and this bloke walked in with an older bloke, and I said, "Hello, how are you?" And he said, "Fine." I said, "Oh, who's this?" He said, "It's my dad. I've come with my dad." Right, okay then. And I said, "Right, we're going to take some pictures. Let's wait till the public come in. We'll take the pictures." And I said, "What do you do then?" He said, "Oh, I'm a footballer." I said, "Oh, that." I said, "Are you any good?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm not bad." What I didn't realise, it was Gary Neville.
Right.
It's just things like that. It's quite humbling when they know you genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
And they just talk to you in a different way because you're not out to get them for something or out to get something, or you just two people talking. Yeah.
Just two people talking, and as I say, I think often people, a lot of people in that sort of sphere don't get to talk like that very often, so they actually encourage it. I really do believe that. There's obviously a few people that you describe as up themselves that would definitely wouldn't, but most people are just people ultimately.
Yeah. Annabelle Croft. I went to lunch with Annabelle Croft, the former tennis player, and I knew she was a tennis player. And at the end of the day, when I'd taken all the pictures with all the public press again, and she said, "Why don't me and you have a picture of us taken together?" And I said, "Annabelle, why do you want a picture of me?" What she actually meant was, I probably wanted a picture of her. And actually, that's not the case. I thought she wanted a picture of me.
Nice. That's
There you
wonderful.
go.
That's
Oblivion.
wonderful. What a great story. So, just a couple of things before we wrap up. What would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say do it. Try. Don't worry if you fail. Try not to fail. Have the mindset that you won't fail, but don't be upset if you do fail. Like you said earlier, learn by it. But make sure you're well funded. Plan as much as you can. Take advice. There's lots of support out there from action coaches, from local authorities. There's lots of support out there. Take as much advice as you can. And I think the one big thing that I've always done is never invest in it more than you can afford to lose.
Yeah.
I've never gone bankrupt. I've had businesses that have done better, businesses that haven't done as well. I've even had one business that I shut down because I didn't go in the direction I wanted it to. But some people do go bankrupt, and it's very sad. And I've seen how it destroys lives. So just plan for the worst, but expect the best. I think that's what I'd say. And remember, sometimes, although hard work isn't always the end game, sometimes you've just got to work hard to get things going, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%. I think we talked earlier about, not hard work isn't the route forever, but it is often the route at the start. I think that's absolutely right. But I think there's a point at which we need to work smart rather than hard, and it's difficult once we've got into the mindset of working hard to actually take that step back. And it is a really difficult thing for many of the people that I work with. And if you started again, Chris, is there anything significant that you think you might do differently?
Not a lot, except for I probably would have. I've only ever had 2 coaches. I'd probably do a lot more coaching and training.
Brilliant.
Because it would fast track me to learning things. I now realize if I'd known when I was younger, my life would have been easier. Doesn't mean I would have made more money, but my life would have been easier.
Yes. Wonderful. It's an interesting thing. I know I introduced a prospective client to one of my clients, probably the most successful case study we've got. I mean, he retired as a millionaire at 36, and so I introduced him to this guy, and the belief of this person was, he said, well, why, he's just going to get me to read, he's going to tell me lots of stuff that I could find out in books, and obviously there was a lot more to it. But Gary just said, yeah, he reads the book, so you don't have to. And
yeah.
And even at that level, it makes a difference. So it's fascinating. So wonderful. So last question before we wrap up. What would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so, Chris?
Wow. That's difficult because everything I've done, I have no regrets at all. So that's quite lucky. Think a little bit more about the people around me, not just about myself. And that's the youth indestructible. My own kids, they think they're indestructible. The young kids, a lot of young kids, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot think they're indestructible.
Yep.
And sometimes they think about themselves and don't realize the consequences of their actions. And I'm still learning that now.
Yeah.
We all learn that from day to day. But if I could have learned it a little bit quicker, that'd be quite nice. I feel I'm quite a nice person, but I think it would have made me a much rounder person, I think.
Yes, brilliant. Very, very, very sound advice. So, Chris, thanks so much for your time this morning. It's been really fascinating and entertaining. For anyone watching that would like to contact you or the company, what would be the best way to do so?
They can call us. Can I give the number out?
Please do. Yeah, absolutely.
0113 249 4399. You could do a search for 2020-studio.co.uk. That's TWENTY20-studio.co.uk. But we're going to relaunch on the 15th. Everything should be redirected. That's probably the best way to do it. I can go on LinkedIn. I'm trying to build up my LinkedIn profile, because I just want to meet lots of interesting people. In fact, I just popped a request into you about an hour ago. So hopefully,
brilliant. I will respond to that immediately. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Chris, again, thanks so much, and it'd be great to swing by in 6-12 months, see where you are. Obviously, there will be a rebranding, relaunch going on, so I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of more stuff to talk about then. So thank you so much again.
Lovely. All right. Thank you.
Cheers.